Hello and welcome to a special edition of Fools Rushed In, where we will be joined tonight by Swindon Town defender Cian Harries. Alongside me will be a panel of our regulars to ask all the questions you guys have submitted. So thank you in advance.
Take my hand, take my whole life too, but I can't help falling in love with you.
And before we say hello to today's special guest, let's meet tonight's panel of regulars, starting off with Nick. How are you, pal?
Yeah, I'm really good, Fifey. Thanks very much. Looking forward to tonight. Actually, having somebody on the pod who knows what he's talking about with football rather than the usual shit we talk.
Absolutely. Definitely better to have a professional's opinion than the absolute nonsense we do twice a week 100%. At the minute. Next up, good evening, Ben.
Evening, Fifey. Yeah, buzzing for today. A little bit nervous, actually, having an actual player on. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting night.
Yeah, it's a little bit daunting, mate, but you're a pro at this now. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I know.
Just tell your face, eh? Last but not least, good evening to Kieran. How are you, pal?
Yeah, not too bad. Why are you nervous having me on, Ben? I'm always on. Absolute player.
I know, mate. It's just like
football player. In case anyone's watching
that.
Well, let's get the man on. Everyone is looking forward to seeing as we get to say good evening to Cian. How are you, pal?
Evening. Not so bad, thanks, mate. I'm just happy to be here and looking forward to it.
As we say, as we were saying off air, we can't thank you enough for taking time out your evening to talk to us. And I must say, when you said that there was plenty of topics you were happy to go into, that this could be a very interesting hour or so. I'm very much looking forward to it. We asked a number of Swindon fans who listen and watch to our podcast to send in questions as well, which we'll put to you. And a lot of people were interested to kind of get to know you a little bit better, if that's okay. So we'll start there. And if we go right back to the beginning, where was your kind of footballing inspirations?
I come from a pretty sporting family, not all solely based on football. I come from a very Irish-based family, so my uncle was a good football player, sort of at top non-league level.
Okay.
His brother, my uncle Liam, was a really good Gaelic football player and a really good Irish dancer when he was younger.
Nice.
So my dad played football locally as well, but not to any sort of level. And just I've got a few cousins that are similar age of me, and I suppose just like most lads that get into football when they're younger, it's just with your mates at school, and seeing bits and bobs on telly. I used to go. I'm from Solihull, so my local team would have been Aston Villa when I was growing up. So I'd have gone to a lot of Aston Villa games when I was younger. I've got the majority of my family are Liverpool or Celtic fans, so I used to go with my uncles to go and watch Liverpool. When I was really younger, too younger to remember, I got to a couple of Community Shield finals and FA Cup finals and stuff like that. And then you get the bug for it, don't you? And then you start to understand actually what you're watching. And it took me till I was probably about, I don't know, 5 or 6 maybe, to realise that I'm actually okay at playing it as well. I didn't just love watching it. The passion to play was really there.
And you mentioned obviously you're from Solihull and around the area, and I believe youth career wise you came up through Coventry, so that makes a lot of sense. What was it like coming up through Coventry? Because it's certainly, but in a similar way to Swindon, it's a very interesting club to be around most of the time.
Yes. So originally I started with a local side called Binbrook. They're based in Solihull. I played from there from 6 till 8. And our team was, for that sort of age, was pretty ridiculous. I think we lost 1 game in 2 years or something like that.
Complete opposite to mine then.
Yeah. I don't know. And we had lads going on trial all across the country. So when I was younger, I went on trial at Birmingham City. In that 2-year period from 6 to 8, Birmingham City, Aston Villa, West Brom, Coventry, There was a few northern teams that it wasn't ideal to get to on trial, sort of like Manchester City before all that oil money came, Stoke. But I just went to the 3 local ones, West Brom, Birmingham and Villa to me. And after the year, you do under 7s to under 8s on trial at them clubs. And you then get offered sort of like a 2-year contract when you're 8. I don't know if you can call it a contract or what, but to sign. And I had the choice between signing for Birmingham and Aston Villa. I was desperate to sign for Birmingham because a few of my mates that were playing at my local Sunday side signed there at Birmingham. Okay. But sort of with the advice of my parents and all of that, my older family, I signed at Aston Villa. I wouldn't have understood at the time, but Aston Villa had a massive project where the training ground was going to be state of the art, one of the first in the country. And when you're 8, you just want to play with your mates. And I suppose, gratefully, my parents saw the bigger picture and advised me to sign at Aston Villa. So I signed there till I was 14. At 14, I then got released, as a lot of youngsters do. I think there was about 15 in our age group, and they released 11 at that age. Then went and signed at Coventry a few days after that at 14, and then stayed there up until I was 19. Managed to get my apprenticeship, get my first pro contract, and then sort of break into the first team. And Coventry was like brilliant for me. I had so many good mates that I still speak to now that play for clubs in the Football League. My youth team was like, for the level that we were at, we weren't obviously in the top level, we were sort of League One. Yeah. Our youth team was brilliant. We had players like George Thomas, who's at QPR, James Madison, who's obviously at Leicester, Ben Stevenson at Forest Green. Yeah, the youth team, the standard of our youth team was pretty special. And before we were sort of all out of our teams, we were in the first team. And I ended up leaving Coventry the year that they went down to League Two. There was a few issues that I seen when I was leaving, a couple of years before I was leaving, really, where they were out the stadium. They were playing at Northampton and stuff like that.
That's right, yeah.
I remember that.
They were building out the stadium, and then there was big discussions and stuff. And I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but it just seemed like they were always short of a few quid at that point. Yeah. So sort of, especially when they went down to League Two, any sort of assets that they had in younger players that had played, I think they were happy to sort of to sell for the right price. So I then moved on to Swansea at 19.
Can I just ask a question? Going back to what you said earlier, that you were released at 14.
Yeah.
What was that like as a 14-year-old being released from a club? How did you sort of cope with that?
I was on the floor, Nick. Properly on the floor. And I was watching is there a documentary, sort of a series that's out on Channel 4 now about the Crystal Palace youth team?
It's brilliant.
Nick loves that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is brilliant. It is brilliant. But I was looking at
brutal.
Too brutal.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of it and thinking, there's lads like 9, 10, 11 there. They're far more mature than I was. They understand that they're actually playing for a contract.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's pressure from parents or whatever, but I never ever got any of that. It was all solely done myself. If I didn't want to do it, I didn't have to do it. And at 14, when I was, this is how deluded you can be. I thought I was doing pretty well in the academy at that point. I was playing a year above myself. I was took out of school once a week to go and train. There was only 4 of us in that age group that took out once a week to go and train on a Thursday afternoon. Wow. So sort of your judgment can be obviously pretty off. I got released at the end of the season, but my judgment was that I was doing well. And it was only parents that were going into the meetings, the release retain meetings at that age. So when I'm seeing the Crystal Palace lads going into meetings and getting told that they're let go at like 12, which is like, I don't think I've ever been in a meeting like that till I was about 16, till I was 16. Wow. So I sort of, my dad went in, obviously don't know specifically what was said, but I just remember getting the phone call. I was at my grandparents. I pretty much lived at my grandparents because my parents were working full time. After I left, when I was in school, so I'd go straight back to my grandparents. So I got a call up my dad, and like I thought he was taking the piss, really. Like I couldn't believe, I couldn't believe that I'd been. That's all I'd known for 7 years of my life, like half of my life, going in and training at Aston Villa, and then suddenly it can just end. Like I bawled my eyes out all evening. I was like, didn't even want to go to school because through no fault of your own, you're known in school for playing football, and everyone assumes when you're like that age in school, he's going to play in the Premier League, he's going to do this, that, and the other. like embarrassed to go to school the next day. You just don't know where you're going to end up. Like my uncle was then running like a Sunday league side in an old football club, and you're like, Jesus, is that like the fallout of that? Am I going to end up playing there at the weekend? Because I'm obviously not going to play for the Villa no more. But luckily,
On that note, can I ask, in your opinion, I mean, you've already said that there wasn't a massive gap between Villa and Coventry. A lot of people won't necessarily get that fortunate. Do you think, looking at youth setups, there's enough help for young people coming to terms with that?
I couldn't comment because I didn't go long enough without a club to really. I signed for Coventry 2 days later, so I was like,
oh, okay, literally 2 days.
That's right then, yeah.
1% that would be fortunate enough to go straight into another academy. So I never really fully experienced maybe the two weeks, a month after it. I signed at Coventry, luckily enough, because when I was saying that I was 7 and 8, I wanted to sign at Birmingham City. The academy manager there ended up being the academy manager at Coventry.
Right. Okay.
So he knew me from when I was younger, and you obviously play against all these clubs pretty regularly when you're in the academy because you kind of only play the teams that are half local to you.
Yeah.
So I was asked to come down and just whether I'd want to sign, and at that point, like, I'd say like it was the worst night, like one of the worst nights of my life, getting released by Villa. But like getting picked up by Coventry was completely like it probably is the best thing that's happened to me in terms of my football. They give they're still doing it now. They give so much opportunity to younger lads and continue to do so. Like even in the Championship now, they've not stopped doing that. And don't want to sort of blow smoke up their arse too much, but. The amount of players that they produce, that are playing in the Football League is pretty ridiculous. Lads that you wouldn't even think came through at Coventry. Like Connor Thomas played for Swindon, came through at Coventry, played 150 games before he'd left Coventry. By the time he was 20, such a good academy, such good coaching, and it was never the best academy. So I'd gone from Villa's state of the art stuff to the Alan Higgs Centre, which is just 2 pitches in an AstroTurf, and it's just so much different. So everyone's so humble, and the lads, like I listed the lads earlier, they're all good mates with them still. Even Madders, who's obviously in the Premier League now and played for England, still the same lad, still the same chirpy lad at like 14 that he was at 14, 15.
I've got to ask now that you've mentioned him. Do you look and think, especially when we've seen what's happened the last couple of days, that realistically, I mean, I do. And I live in Leicester, so I hear it all the time from the Leicester fans. He should be in the England squad, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's done enough. He obviously had that period last season where he wasn't producing, or the start of last season where he wasn't scoring and assisting enough, and his goal contribution wasn't enough. But I must have read on Twitter or something, his goal contribution and the goals and assists combined is like right up there with
that's ridiculous.
Else.
Well, especially if Leicester's struggling at the minute.
That's what I mean. Leicester. Right down the bottom, you can only think like if they were towards the top end of the league, sort of what he'd be doing. Like imagine he played for Tottenham, but his goals and assists for Son, Kane, all them boys would be ridiculous.
It would be wrong of me. There's a couple of other bits about your career to touch on, but it'd be wrong of me not to mention. And I hope I've got this right. You were on the subs bench in the cup final when Coventry beat a certain rival of ours. Absolutely beating Oxford. I have to ask firstly, what's it like to win at Wembley? Because I mean, particularly people like me and Kieran, we're not old enough to remember.
Yeah. When was the last time Swindon did win at Wembley?
93.
1993.
Oh,
before I was even born.
Old Wembley, that is.
Old Wembley, yeah. Been to New Wembley a few times and not even scored yet.
Yeah.
No, not yet. Not yet. I think you would have gone up last year anyway. Like, to be honest, but I had my hat on you really, thinking that Swindon should have gone up last year.
I think we all
think Swindon should have gone up last year.
No, without doubt.
Squad depth. Best one of the best 11s, but once we had a couple of injuries and that we didn't have too much to fall back on, and relying heavily on loans as well, it just wasn't
most of the clubs at this level do rely on a lot of loans, on good loans.
But hey, these things all happen for a reason, and potentially, had we have gone up, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. In depending on how things worked out. I've been asked to ask you about what it was like going abroad on loan and playing in another country, especially at such a young age.
Yeah, I was at Swansea and I needed to get out on loan. I'd sort of done 2 seasons, well, a season in the under-23s and then a season where I'd played a few games in the FA Cup for the first team and a couple of championship games. Being brutally honest, just wasn't ready for the championship. So I needed to go out and play. Sort of the way Swansea are, they're obviously known to be a real footballing side.
Yeah.
So maybe going into League Two, I don't know, for example, going on loan to like Wimbledon or somewhere, I don't know where, just a random club in League One, League Two wouldn't have been the best thing. So they sort of organised for me to go out to Holland, which was like a real technical league. And I enjoyed it, really. I did enjoy it. I only done 6 months in the end. I think I was due to do a season. Looking back as I'm a little bit older now, I felt like I was in such a rush to go and do well and just come back to England. I went out there the same time as a lad called George Cox, who came on loan from Brighton. And he's still out there playing for the same club now. So he's fully embraced it. He's signed there permanently, done sort of 3. He's played 100 games for them now. So whereas my mentality was like, right, go and do well there, come back, try and get in Swansea's first team. You can't get in Swansea's first team. You have to play in League One, League Two. That's like the be-all and end-all of footy. Yeah. And just as I'm a bit older now, I should have enjoyed it more while I was there. It is a different culture. It's only an hour and a bit flight away, but it was completely different culture. A lot more laid back, just the whole life. They're more laid back about football and everything. But I sort of missed that intensity of England, really, and English football.
And you've also been fortunate enough to be part of Wales youth level camps and made a couple of appearances at different age gaps. That must be that must be massive.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I sort of joined up with Wales when I was 15 in the under-16 side. I qualified through my dad and my dad's parents. So I played all the way through from under-16s to under-21s and loved every minute, to be honest. Met some really good lads that I'm still mates with. So George Thomas, the lad that I was saying is at QPR now, he was in the same youth team as Coventry as me, and he was in the same Wales setup as me. So it was brilliant to be able to go away with someone from your club as well and everything. You do make really good mates. So sort of my youth team age group, I don't know how well you know the Welsh national team, was like Dan James, Joe Morrell, Harry Wilson, Joe Rodden's playing, Chris Mepham. It's pretty much like, apart from Bale and Ramsey and boys like them, pretty much the starting 11 for Wales.
Wales team. Yeah.
There's some talent in them names there again, isn't there?
Yeah. So I've been fortunate the whole way through my academy sort of journey that I've been around good players and it's better to be around good ones than bad ones.
Absolutely. Not all the questions we've been asked to put to you are necessarily your traditional sort of questions to ask footballers. One that did spring out to me when I was asked was particularly growing up and then becoming the pro. Was there a particular boot brand of choice that you liked, or did you just go with whatever looked good, whatever felt good at the time?
When we was in the academy at Villa, you had to wear black boots. So your boot choice was pretty limited. Yeah, it was old school. Yeah. Up until probably, I think you go full time at 16. We were black boots, and the club used to provide a pair of Nike Tempos for us, but you could wear what you want. But I was pretty big on Steven Gerrard, so I would just whatever sort of black Adidas Predators were out at that point. Adidas. I'd just I'd be begging my old man for a pair.
Did you have to clean first team players' boots at the time? Because it used to be back in the day. YTS youth lads used to clean boots.
I've done it at Coventry. From 16 to 18. We sort of had 4 first team lads that we were assigned to, along with other jobs. So can't even think what the jobs. Some you'd be paired up in jobs. So some lads would be on like canteen duty, laying tables before training. My first year, I used to have to move the goals for first team training before training. So when obviously in the winter when it's pissing down, it's like a bit of a ball ache. Yeah. But in the second year, I can't even think what I had in the second year. I swept the first team dressing room at the end of training in the second year, and then you obviously have your 4 lads that you're assigned to for boots, which which is quite. It's hilarious looking back. Like you hate doing it at the time. It's like the worst thing in the world. You got to go and clean boots after training. But it's, my youth, I love my youth too. When I look back at it, it was hilarious.
Did you get a decent Christmas tip?
Yeah, off a few lads actually. There was a story. Well, it wasn't me, but one of the youth lads had Leon Clark, who was at Swindon for a bit.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
What is this? So I was going to say, if you still speak to Leon because he doesn't like us very much.
I was obviously at Bristol with Leon last year, and Leon's from Droit, which sort of Bromsgrove area, which isn't too far away from me.
Not too far from you, no.
No, I got on with Leon really well, to be honest. Leon was good, but he was injured a lot last year, and I felt for him. I don't think he signed anywhere this season. I don't know if he's retired or what he's done, but he's not signed anywhere. And he sort of said to one of the lads around Christmas time, he sort of said, well, not sort of said, he said, like, step into my office, son. And he sort of brought him into the first team changing room and sort of like opened up his wallet. He was like, tell me, like, what do you want? As if it was like the golden pot at the end of the rainbow. And I think that I just said a couple hundred quid. He gave him a couple hundred quid and he came in like over the moon.
Wow.
And you're like 16 over a couple hundred quid, like buzzing off it.
The irony, because I think Paolo asked him what he wanted once and he asked to leave.
He just didn't want to run anymore.
Was Leon much of a runner? Was he much of a trainer? Because that was what the spat was about, really, about having to do some running the next day. And Leon Clark wasn't quite happy about doing running, so he told the trainer where to go.
I don't know if he'd had enough with Di Canio and all that carry on anyway.
Yeah.
I must have read about 5 different versions of that story everywhere. Like everyone's got a different version of it, haven't they?
Of course they have. There's one person's story, there's every person's story, and somewhere in the middle there's the truth.
The truth, yeah, exactly.
You mentioned it there, so let's talk then. Obviously you went to Bristol Rovers, and ultimately they had a successful season last year. What was it like, your time there?
Up and down, really. I signed in the January, and the season then got curtailed in March, was it, for COVID? So I'd only really just got my feet in the door before the season had stopped. Then it was obviously that whole period where no one knew what the hell was going to happen, when we were going to be back in, where the season was going to be finished. So I was sort of in limbo, as everyone was. And then it obviously got said that the season was done. It was going to be on points per game, all that sort of stuff. And we had a massive turnover of players that summer. So something like 14 or 15 players left. Ben Garner was obviously in the job, when I joined. So Ben signed me at Bristol.
Yep.
And we had a lot of older players at the club at the time. So we sort of had like boys like Tony Craig, Liam Sercombe, older lads. And Ben sort of, with the prerogative of the board, I suppose, sort of had to move them players on and get a new, younger batch of lads in. Sort of like the Coventry sort of mould, to be able to then play, improve and sell maybe.
Yep.
So we got loads of new lads in that summer. It was a massive turnover. We started the season okay. It was a bit weird for everyone. There was no supporters and stuff. And then Ben obviously got sacked around October time, which, to be honest, was a bit of a surprise because they'd given him so much leeway in terms of empowering, sort of getting people out, bringing people in, his own staff, everything, that it was like, I thought it was a longer term project than like August to October.
Yeah.
Could you sense it though? Could you think that he was under pressure? Or was it like totally out of the blue?
Nah, maybe a little bit at the time. There was times where it was like, oh, Jesus, like he might be close, but he got sacked when we was on our best run since he got the job. So not really. We'd won a couple of games, drew a couple of games, and then we got battered off Fleetwood at home. We got beat 4-1 on like the worst day to play football, when it's like howling with wind. Yeah. And then he got the sack after that. And I remember being on the way home, and I used to go in with a lad that plays for Shrewsbury now, Luke Leahy, and we were like, Jesus, like, didn't see that coming really. Couldn't really smell it, but I just didn't know what was being said elsewhere. I think it was a shock to him as well, to be honest, to Ben. And then...
sorry, carry on.
Go on, sorry. No, you carry on.
You carry on. I was interrupting. You carry on.
I'm just going through my whole seasons now.
That's fine. That's fine. I enjoy listening to the stories because like you're living the life that we all wish we had.
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, you stopped. Ben Garner.
Yeah.
to me, and I think quite a few fans, he came across as a miserable bastard. No communication with the fans. Say
how it is, Nick.
Yeah, no communication with the fans, no contact with us. Seemed to be pretty boring. What was he actually like as a person or as a coach?
I liked him. He was pretty serious about his football. Like I wouldn't be having a conversation of like, what's my favourite pint at the weekend. It would be more like, what is your job? I suppose it would be football, majority football based. I suppose that would have been the same with everyone else. But he was I'm trying to think if he was. It was never that moody. He was quite light-hearted around us, to be honest.
Right.
He was. I thought he was pretty sound, but I can understand fans having a completely different view on a Saturday to during the week.
On the subject of Ben Garner, you played under a couple of different managers while you were at Rovers, and as you can imagine, we got quite a few questions saying, well, can you ask him like what's Joey Barton really like? Is it all like media hype about his character? So I'd be interested in that, but also any sort of similarities and differences between the likes of Garner to Barton and even Scott Lindsay now. Is there certain similarities between them and certain differences?
With Joey, there's a lot of differences, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. It's like an advent calendar every day. Like it can be something different every day. It was never to the extreme of like, fuck me, he's out of line here or whatever. It was like just bonkers. It was like you go into the training ground at Bristol and it'd be like the world was cut off outside. It's like them lads, that group of staff, his staff are just as bonkers as they are, and it would be like you're living in a different world. It would have you hooked. Like you wouldn't even want to go home from footy. Like the best, you stay at footy as long as you could. It'd be like you're doing it overtime in a job where you're paid by the hour. Like you wouldn't want to leave. And there was obviously times last season where we were like on the floor really. So we went down under Joey. We went down under Joey the same time that Swindon went down.
Yep.
He's obviously started the season last year really well. And we were on the floor really. We had like another massive crop of players, like 18, 19 players, turnover. We couldn't find our feet. Lads were shot of confidence. And similar to here really, I suppose it can be a hard fan base to play in front of when results aren't going your way because of the standards that are expected. And it got to a point last season at Bristol where towards the beginning it was pretty toxic, and it was like lads not nervous to get the ball and stuff, but like rather than trying to do something positive, you're playing to not fuck up.
Yeah. There's quite a famous clip actually when we turned you lot over 3-1 last season.
Well done, Ben.
of the two Rovers fans having a massive argument about over Ben Garner. In the thickest Bristolian accent. It was hilarious. Honestly, if you can find it went viral. It was so funny.
We would have had a right giggle up about it in the dressing room, like a couple of weeks later. Then two of them were going at it like, no, it's his fault. Yeah. Blaming Ben and then back to Joey.
You suspect any cunt from Garner. Just the two Bristolians going at each other is probably the funniest thing. It's just I love that accent.
That was when it was pretty bad. There was a few games like we were 3-0 down to Warrior at home and stuff, and you're like, just end the contest now. Like it's 45 minutes of having to go out and get abused and stuff, and just not nice. But it's I'm trying to think of the game now. We obviously were pretty much on the floor, and I don't know how much pressure Joey would have been under from the board and whatever. I don't think as much as what was being made out that he was close to leaving and stuff. I don't think he'd had too much. Again, that's similar to what I was saying about Ben. They'd had that much power in the summer to make that much change. Seems pretty pointless just to sack him off like 5 or 6, 7 bad results.
Yeah, I think it's one of them things where because he was, a big name in the lower down divisions, he was the one that people would focus on. So if it wasn't going well, it was very, very bad kind of thing. They would build it up because of the name Joey Barton, in my opinion.
Yeah. Also, you got smashed at Exeter once. Sorry, you got smashed at Exeter once. And then he went, we're going up automatically. And there's It was like you got beat like 5-1 or something like that. But
we got 4-0. 4-0. We got
4-0 was it?
They've got it away this weekend. I've seen a few things on Twitter like "Don't remind me" and stuff like clips.
I promise Ben isn't going to spend the whole evening reminding you of every time you got smashed while playing for Bristol Rovers.
Sorry, yeah, Rovers are rivals. You might not notice, but
a little bit. So we got beat off you, didn't we? We got beat 3-1. Well, Swindon last year. We got beat off Swindon 3-1. And like I'm not even just saying it, and I've not just said. I've said it to the lads here. Like we came off the pitch, like what the fuck was that like? We couldn't even get near us. Like you was far not better coached, but you was so well coached, and you knew what you was doing, and you was organised, and it was like we went 1-0 up, and it was like fuck me, like. We've done well to go 1-0. We hadn't had a kick before that. And then we just pretty much got abused, didn't we, second half, and he was peppering our goal. And I think it was actually, I was going to sound biased now at the time, but a bit of a dodgy penalty, wasn't it? Was it handball and red card from like a yard away, and it's hit the ball in the chest?
Yeah,
Stonewall.
Very dodgy.
Yeah, Stonewall. And then it was 3-1. McCurdy came on and scored, and we sat down after that game and had a meeting, like an analysis meeting, and sort of like soul searching, really, of like how are we gonna turn it around, because we were really on the floor, and there's no like specific way of saying like if we do X, Y, and Z, like it will turn. There's so many moments in sport and football which is like instinct, sort of off the cuff, and we were 1-0 down away at Warsaw last year, and we were gone at this point in terms of like really on the canvas, and we scored two goals in the last 5 minutes from 2 corners and beat Warsaw away 2-1, and we hadn't won in a year away near enough. It was like 350 something days.
Yeah,
and like I'm not saying that was the reason that Bristol ended up getting promoted last year, but it's them little spark moments that.
No, it's the fact that you got to play against a youth team that you got promoted, wasn't it?
Oh, Jesus!
Hell of a
no, but no one mentioned Scunthorpe were playing the same team for the last month.
Yeah,
that's just against Bristol. They were doing it for a month.
As soon as they got relegated, they started playing that team. And in the Football League, there's a rule beyond a certain point of March. You've got to play the same team in the final few games. So Scunthorpe did what they were gonna. So I always find that a bit harsh on Rovers. That
yeah, they get a bit of slack for it, don't they? Like how much did you give them and all that kind of stuff.
If it was anyone else, no one would mention it, obviously.
Oh, never.
I was watching we were at Warsaw at the game, and I was watching the goals come through us, and because Swindon had already done the game 3-0, I did not want Rovers. They were the one team I did not want in the playoffs, because you boys were flying, you know.
Me and Ben argued about this,
because I was going, oh please, let's just do Northampton, because I fancy beating all the other teams, just not Rovers. Yeah. And it's just like, when I found out you won, you got the last minute goal, and I was like, because I thought that was us going to Wembley, because I thought Ben,
did you just admit to celebrating the Bristol Rovers goal?
I did, because I didn't want to play him. And I thought,
at the benefit of his own club.
Honestly, Port Vale were average. They were just like a big mover.
Yeah, Ben, I'd stop now. They did beat us, remember? And we were actually the worst team in that whole playoff. So we won't go into that.
Yeah, but no, going into the playoffs, we'd won 4 in a row, and Port Vale were in shocking form. I know they beat Exeter last day.
I was rooting for Rovers that
by Newport day before. And
I was rooting for Rovers that day, because I love a story where a goal swing's needed, and you've got to do it, because like you hardly ever see it in football. So I was like, go on. Every time a goal went, they need another one.
So without wishing to dwell on it too much, because we are all Swindon fans, as much as Ben's pretending he's not now.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because obviously you went on that mental run at the end, and then to clinch it like that. What was that like?
Not unbelievable, really. Like it's cliche in that, but like it was ridiculously unbelievable. Like not for 1 minute did we think that we would ever get promoted in terms of like in a way like that. Like we were 16th at Christmas, like late playoff push at best. Is that what you're hoping for?
Hmm.
And there was like I was saying, there were so many moments that just turned it on its head, and we just had it helps when you've got good players. Like we brought so many good loans in, like Elliot Anderson, who's playing for Newcastle's first team, Connor Taylor, who's in Stoke's first team. We had a lot of players that were probably above the level. That
Okay.
if they were in League One sort of Championship side, they wouldn't have looked out of place last season. So we had, like everyone was saying, like Elliot, and like you hear it from outside, like Elliot Anderson, he's like a cheat code. Like you can't tackle him. He's gonna run past 3 or 4. He's gonna score and it's just like a weekly done thing. And it was getting to the point like even if the game was like 0-0 with like 20 minutes to go, like we'll win 1-0 because someone's not done something magical yet. Like and we've got enough players on the pitch that someone will.
Well, that was like it, Rochdale, wasn't it? You were losing in stoppage time.
Yeah, that was a mad game.
Yeah,
losing
2 late goals.
With like 5 minutes to go. Losing 3-1 with 5 minutes to go and end up winning 4-3.
Yeah.
And it's just like that rub of the green. Like the 4th goal with like 10 seconds left, it's like pinball in the box, and then it just lands at your centre forward's feet with an open goal. Whereas 6 months prior, before Christmas, like it just gets cleared. It doesn't end up at your centre forward's feet. It's so much. Sport is so much about luck and so much about moments. I think anyway.
Yeah.
Well, on the subject of moments, I'll give you one more trip down memory lane at Rovers before we move on. We have to talk about your one. I believe your only goal for them. It wasn't bad, was it?
Yeah. No, it was nice. I honestly, like, it's a similar story to when Joe Cole scored that goal in the World Cup. Tested it, flattened it in the corner, and he says like, I only shot because I was fucked. I promise you, I'd had no pre-season. I'd trained a week. I'd been injured pre-season. I'd trained a week, and the ball came out of the sky. And the last thing I wanted to do was like take a bad touch and have to run 8 yards back. I was like, I'm just shooting. If it goes in the stand, it goes in the stand. Like who, like gives a toss? I only had that shot because I was fucked.
You didn't look up to that celebration. You went off. You were off, mate. After you scored, you're gone.
No, I'll tell you why that was, because we was at pre-match food and I was speaking to this substitute goalkeeper, Belshaw, who ended up becoming the number 1. And I said, like, I can see myself like tapping one in from 2 yards with my right foot today. And like I then scored the complete opposite of what I'd said. So I just ran over to him. Yeah, that was brilliant. That was a good day for myself. We got beat, but yeah, the Scunthorpe one was honestly, and I don't want to keep bringing it up, but it was ridiculous. And it was only in the automatics for 8 minutes all season.
Yeah,
that was it. Yeah, the season, that was it.
All it means.
Only 8 minutes that mattered. Only 8 minutes that mattered.
So we then come to the point of you obviously joining Swindon. Coming from Bristol, obviously the logistics is ideal, but did it cross your mind at all that there was? Okay, they're not seen as an Oxford rivalry, but it's still a rivalry to most. And did you see it as a bit of a crossing the divide kind of thing?
Honestly, not at all. I didn't even think about it. You've got to do the right thing. Well, what you think is the right thing for yourself and your career, and that didn't cross my mind. Not really till I'd sort of signed and settled in, and I was like, oh, there is a bit of rivalry. Like you're saying, it's not like the Oxford-Swindon sort of rivalry where it's close and like quite real hatred, really.
I seem to remember you getting a fair bit of flack from Bristol Rovers fans, though, which seemed a bit harsh. Like to us looking from the outside,
yeah,
like we understood it to a point.
I don't think it was all to do with me signing for Swindon. I think I'd have got a fair bit. I don't know what it was. They sort of had it in for me a little bit towards the end. I honestly couldn't tell you why. There's a few instances, not massive instances, but I'd given a couple of fans a little bit back, just but it was getting a bit much and it's right in your face and stuff, and it's just to the point. Like I always say to my partner, like now, like when like people right in your face and giving you X, Y, and Z, like it won't come to your job if you're an electrician and be in your face seeing you off,
exactly and it,
T-bombing you and everything. So and sometimes it like. Like the way I said it to my partner was like, well, he won't do it again. Like as long as like I've had to take it, but he won't do it to the next person. He won't do it to the next player. I'll tell you when that was. Go on, sorry.
It's the thing with football fans. They love it. They love giving it. As soon as you give it back, though, they're like, oh, I don't know, like hate it.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It was like a lad probably about 20 years of age, and we were 3-1 down to Oxford in the FA Cup, first half of extra time.
Well, that's your first problem.
Yeah, it ended okay. So 3-1 down, extra time FA Cup to Oxford, and I was saying something to the linesman, and some idiot in the crowd probably like similar age, like I don't know, 22, 23, maybe, sort of shouting like, "Shut up, Harris! Get on with your job, you muppet," and all that. And I just said, like, just mind who you're talking to. Like, you know, you are here to support Bristol Rovers. You're not here to try and affect Bristol to lose. We ended up winning 4-3 in extra time, so we come back from 3-1 to win 4-3, and I just like darted straight towards him.
Fair play, top man.
But when I shouted back, there was like a little ripple in that sort of the crowd. So like it kind of just been me that thought it. There is other fans there that is like, there's a line, isn't there? There's a line.
Yeah.
I presume? Well, it's difficult to say because of how it all turned out and the timings and stuff. But obviously, you would have seen what Swindon done the previous season. I imagine that was part of the reason. Trying to think of the timing. Would Garner still been here when you signed, or had he already gone?
Ben had left.
Oh, okay.
Left by, I don't know how long by.
It was such an erratic summer for people coming and going. It was all over the place. But yeah, so you signed for Swindon, and what was kind of the overriding? Were you thinking this is the I'm getting promoted again kind of thing? Is that kind of the target you're setting when you sign?
Well, it is like absolutely, like it has to be, and it's the same as like it would be for a fan. For a player, it is like success is like it is a bit like a drug, I suppose. Like once you've got the taste of it, you like want it again and again and again. And like I didn't play every minute of last season, far from it. I played 20 odd games, but that feeling of actually getting promoted is unrivaled in the feeling that I've had. And it has to be the aim for a club like Swindon in League Two, especially off the back of last season. And I know like the team's changed a lot and blah blah blah, but the league, we're not having to play against teams like Man City, Real Madrid, everyone every week. So like getting promoted out of League Two for a group of our standard and our quality, it's more than achievable to be.
Yeah. And
it becomes the standard, I suppose, a little bit. So like when I signed here, like the standard of my thought process was like, well, we have to get promoted. Like we will get promoted because you just like I say, it is like a drug and become a little bit addicted, I suppose. And it is achievable. It's more than achievable.
One of the questions I got asked to ask you, not Swindon's obviously the obvious one because you're still relatively new to the team, but generally speaking, how are players kind of help to settle? So when signing Swindon, are you kind of you do you to settle in, or is there kind of a process to help you settle in at a new club?
It's obviously different for everyone. There's a player liaison at the club who can help you settle in and find an apartment and all that sort of stuff. But sort of at the age now where I don't need my handheld, I can look after all that sort of stuff myself, which is fine. And then the group was not everyone had signed. So when I was quite early signing, really, it felt like I was late because I only signed at a few days into pre-season. You feel like you're late signing, but you're not in the grand scheme of it because so much happens.
That's never late at Swindon.
No, never. And so by the time that everyone's here now, like I've only been here like a few months, but it's a few weeks longer than a lot of people have. So I find it quite easy to settle in, and I've done it a few times now, and at different clubs. And my character allows me to settle pretty quickly.
How did the signing of Swindon come about anyway? So what happened after Rovers?
After Rovers, we went away on holiday as a team, and I come back and pretty sharpish. Then it was the sort of conversations, because obviously you don't know, like you can't have these conversations in advance. It's not like we were sort of sat 13th and Barton would have been able to sort of turn around and be like, well, you're not getting offered the next season, 3 or 4 weeks before the end of the season. So it was like the middle of May by the time that everything had settled, and it just wasn't offered a new contract at Bristol, which I sort of saw coming, but I thought I was quite a good person around the group and stuff. So I was a little bit disappointed, like naturally, as everyone would be. But it's far from the first time I've had disappointment. So it was just like, then it's like, right, I need to get myself fit. need to get myself in good nick to be able to see what comes up in the summer. Then I'd had a few non-league clubs that were happy to sign me in the summer. But I sort
Did
of
any of them
thought
offer you a Netflix Disney Plus documentary?
No. They never. So I then sort of waited out a little bit. I didn't want to rush into signing into the National League just because I thought I'd done enough to prove myself in the Football League. I thought I could have stayed in the Football League. And then Swindon came up and it was like, right, Swindon, what are my opinions of Swindon? Like, I've told you that he's absolutely bent us over last season. He should have gone up last season, watching you in the playoffs against the teams that he was playing against. And the size of the club, like, I've played a few times. I've played here for Coventry a couple of times, and it's like proper stadium, proper club, isn't it? So it's next to impossible, realistically, to be able to say no. So I found out on the Monday I was signed. On the Tuesday,
Nice.
No big dramas, no waiting about. Once it's there and it's right, just do it.
It always does seem to come across. I don't know if you agree, Kieran, when you see these things from a fan, that you hear a player's linked and then it seems to get really long, protracted out, and then all of a sudden there they are with a scarf or the t-shirt. So it's nice to hear that, you hear about on the Monday, sign on the Tuesday kind of thing. Just not answering that, Kieran. No.
Was that me? Sorry.
No, that was Kieran. This is what I'm saying. We're always going to have this when I said Kieran or Kian. No one was going to know.
Yeah. Well, I was right anyway.
Everyone just sat there like.
Everyone's just like nodding along. Yeah, Fifey's wittering on again. That's fine.
It's always nice. You hear like players being linked months and months before, and then either don't happen or like they do. But I think I don't think there's like a lot of like obviously you were signed quite quickly, so no sort of name bashing. But it's nice when you do just have a player appear out of nowhere and go, all right, yeah, they're on it.
Yeah.
But that's the way that would be the way it would be with a lot of free agents, I suppose, when they're not massively going to be in demand. Like I wouldn't have been massively in demand in the summer at all, far from it. So, and stuff can rumble on. Like obviously the McCurdy thing would have rumbled on for a little while, and it obviously got done pretty late. But that's all logistics and money and clubs talking to each other. I didn't. It's not like an actual deal's would have been done between two clubs for me. Yeah, it's just me and whatever club that I was signing at. So it's like such an easy thing to do. Like I was saying, it was done pretty much in a day, less than a day.
So now you've signed then, and you've mentioned some of the other people you've been fortunate enough, and some of the other characters that you've been involved in. So we have to ask: Is Harry McCurdy the character he comes across as?
Do you know? I got so many texts, like not lads at Bristol, just lads that see football and a few mates from home. They're like, "What's this cat like?" And do you know what? He's a lot more quiet. I found him a lot more quiet than how he comes across. Like I can imagine a lot of people wouldn't like him for the chirpiness and stuff, and just how different he is from outside of actually being here. But like everyone got on with him here fine. He was sound with everyone. Never had a problem with anyone. I just found him a lot quieter than what I thought he was going to be, which isn't a bad thing.
Oh no, certainly not. He was a character while he was here. That's for sure.
Yeah, funny lad.
There's a thing going around at the minute to do with certain players within the squad and nicknames. And I want to ask you, so Wakeling, for example, has a particular nickname that the majority of our podcast aren't fans of, and it's kind of split the fan base down the middle. Are there players within the squad that have nicknames that maybe we haven't picked up on yet that we really should have done?
I'm trying to go through the team from Saturday now. Nah, there's not.
No,
there's none. They're like just pretty nickname based. There wouldn't be no banter with it. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Does anyone take the piss out of Jakey Wakey then?
a little bit,
yeah.
but he's been good, isn't he? He's a
good player.
Oh, he's going to be
scoring.
He's going to be a quality player.
When you're scoring, no one can say anything to you.
No. No. Has he mentioned it at all? Does he like being referred to as Jakey Wakey?
Well, we don't call him Jakey Wakey. We would just call him.
I don't imagine you would.
No. So no, he's never brought up. But I can imagine he's trying to hide it.
Yeah.
Rather than let everyone else know.
Excellent.
So, who would you say is the team joker? Who's the sort of one?
Oh,
that
was going to be
everyone...
my question.
Oh, sorry, mate. do you want to ask it, Kieran?
No, you've started to. May as well finish.
Who's the team joker?
Really,
Who's the one that gels everyone together? Who's the one that actually has the group rolling? Give some examples as well.
Examples. Well, we have a thing in the morning. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like it's in it online, like a tech ball table. So it's like a mini
That's
tennis.
The art one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. So we've got like the 6 of us that play in that, and that gets pretty competitive before training.
Okay.
Doubles comp and loser buys cake and coffee on a Thursday for the 2 that were at the top.
Nice.
So that gets pretty competitive, and that like we've got a group chat there. And the 6 of us. So there's me and Ellis are a partnership. Reedy and Glads are a 2, and Ronan and Angus, and that gets pretty heated in the mornings. So me and Ellis travelling together. And we were driving, and we had Eye the Tiger on us. We were driving into the training ground, like blasting. And Ellis is like video, and it put in the group chat, like, "You better be fucking at it this morning because we're ready." So like that's we haven't had actually like cliche in that, but we haven't had a chance to really go out and have a beer and that together because of so many games yet up till now. But I think that's something that is being organised. That will be done with a lid on it. But I'm trying to think. Like Reedy's hilarious. Reedy, like, there's a lot of lads that are witty, so like quite punchy with like play on words, play on names, stuff like that. Reedy and Glads are quite sharp like that.
Okay. I can imagine that being the case as well.
Yeah, Reedy's quite sharp. Like, he's really witty. I couldn't give you an exact example, but like I've just learned as I've got a little bit older, you have to have such a just enjoy it and just have such a laugh at football. It makes such a difference. If it's down and there's no real laugh, it becomes such a slog of a season, such a slog.
No,
Whereas if I'm going in and enjoying it every day, Friday seems to come around every 2 days when I'm in, like, because I'm here and I'm enjoying it. Seems like it's the weekend every other day.
No.
One thing I've noticed about the Swindon team this year and last year, obviously it's quite young. I think the average age is sort of like 21, 22, 23.
Yeah.
Sort of. So you're all sort of the same age. Does that help gel you compared to all the other teams that you've been with in the past? You know, your Coventry's, your Swansea's, your Bristol Rovers.
Yeah.
Compare it to this team. What's the actual atmosphere like with the boys?
At Swansea, you're obviously coming out. There was lads that were still there from in the Premier League, so like they're quite pretty cut off from going and having a beer. Like there would be none of that really ever, just because of, I don't know what the reason would be. Maybe just because they're proper top earners and they're proper top of the spectrum Premier League footballers. They can't be seen to be doing it. At Bristol last year, we had a mix. So we had like the older lads like Paul Coots, Sam Finley, lads like that have been there and done it, and younger lads. And it is so much about having the right balance. Like, we wouldn't have got promoted without Paul Coots last season, but at the same time, who's like 32, say. But we wouldn't have got promoted without Elliot Anderson, who's like 18.
Yeah.
So it's about having the right balance, which I think that we've got here now. And being a lot of lads being a similar age does help, I suppose. Like everyone, there's lads that this is like their first time playing in the league. Like Tom Clayton's obviously doing really well now. This is his first time, but he's got people that he can like learn off. So like obviously the Frenchies, Glads and stuff. Yeah, I think the balance is just as important as people's ability and stuff. Balance of the team.
Ben kind of mentions like team spirit in that there, and it's been a discussion point on a number of our episodes, particularly in the beginning of the week. How were you guys viewing the start? Because particularly me and Ben have let's go with the word debated this a lot, whether it was a reasonable start, because yes, there was the opening day loss, but then there was, we're on the unbeaten run. Ben was saying it's not it's a decent start because we're not losing games, and I was kind of pointing out, well, but we're not winning games either. How was it being viewed as, within the group?
Kind of in between what you're both saying. Like you obviously know that there was games that we probably shouldn't have won, and it's hard for me to talk because I wasn't playing.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I want them commenting on other people's performance.
No, of course not.
But the lads playing, because they give their all every time that they're playing.
Mm.
But there was games that, as a group, we would say like, that's 2 points dropped rather than 1 point gained. So, like for example, maybe the Stockport game. As a group, we felt that we should have beat Stockport when they went down to 10 men. At the same time, we drew with Salford, who are obviously a good side, and will be up there at the top of the season. We drew to them with 10 men. So then that already within 6 weeks is like it's balanced itself out. Mm-hmm. So we should have beat Stockport, and we should have lost to Salford in theoretical terms. And as the results have gone on, so we've obviously won the last 3, all of them draws are seen in such a better light than if we'd have lost a couple or won. Like they're now, some of them are like really, really good points, which they are. And then the points make such a difference at the end of the season when the medals are handed out in May. It makes such a difference than 3 or 4 draws that we had. And at times it felt like we'd lost more games than we had, but we've only lost 1 game of football, which is it's good going. Like, I don't think there'd be many in the Football League that would still be able to say that they've only lost 1 game at the minute.
No, absolutely not. 9 games undefeated at the minute. If you come away from Northampton without defeat, that's 10 games. That's one hell of a run.
And we've played good teams in that time.
Yeah,
we've played Orient, haven't we? And I think we're still the only team that's taken points off of Orient this season.
Yeah, I think so. Well, they look a good side, don't they?
Yeah, I think they're going to be up there this year. So that could be a massive point come the end of the season. Sort of, we're up there as well,
without doubt.
Yeah, it's all about momentum. Just keep pushing it. As I say, like even if you weren't winning games, my point of view is what I was saying. It's not been a bad start because if you can't win, don't lose. And you're still taking momentum. You're building spine. You're building confidence that even if you're not playing brilliantly, you're not getting beat. And then when it does click and it does keep going, and you're scoring goals, which you were struggling at the start, it takes on because we don't concede many as well. And it's just we're just getting better and better within each game. So it's exciting. It really is exciting.
We're obviously 9 or 10 games in now, but like look at the team on Saturday. Only, if I'm right in thinking, only Glads was a lad in the starting 11 that was here last year, which is like crazy. Like 2 months ago, I didn't even know. Like say for example, like Ronan Darcy was even a football player. Like no disrespect, but it takes time for everything to mould and obviously results start to show now that it's better than what it was 2 months ago, and it'll be better again in 2 months down the line from here.
With regards to your own position within the squad, I imagine, and this is, I think it's fair to say, you've probably not played as much as you would have liked to have played so far. What's it like when you've got that group of sort of 5 or 6 players, including yourself, in that same position? There's obviously that competition that you want that place, but is it kind of there's that team spiritedness about it that you're just kind of all helping each other to get the team the result, or is there that genuine competition? I want to take your place.
I don't know. Like I do know, but it's. I always seen it when I was younger. Like you're my teammate, but you're also like my first opponent because we're going for the same jersey, and I can't play the same position as you. Like it's between the 2 or the 3 or the however many it is. So they are your first opponent, but who did I say to the other week? Like Barton says a great thing, and he said it in a meeting last year. It was like, and he quoted it like this: it was like when the team wins, like nobody loses. So whether you've played like 1 minute every single minute of the 46 games of the season, if the team does well and you just get promoted, nobody loses. So like all them Sir Alex Ferguson Man United teams, there would be boys like I don't know. Like to name a few, like Darren Gibson, maybe. Trying to think of a few other lads, like maybe not Darren Fletcher, Darren Gibson. There'll be lads that would play very little, small parts in them winning the Champions League and the Premier League. Yeah, like off the back of the club and the team winning, like they get sold for a few million quid to. Well, like he must be good. He must be a good character and everything because he's been involved in Man United when they've won the Champions League. So like Sunderland might turn around and be like, oh well, we'll have Darren Gibson because if he's involved in Man United and they're doing it at that top level, like if he was a dickhead, they'd just chuck him out. Yeah. so he must be useful in that sort of way. And everyone, I suppose you sort of grow out of it a little bit. Like when I was younger, like it wouldn't be just me thinking like this, but you get left out when you think you should be playing in your life. Not you want the team to get beat, but like because it's not like that at all. It's more. Well, I just hope the person in my position doesn't go and put on a right performance.
You'd be happy for the team to win and them to play badly.
Yeah, but you don't want him to be the best player on the pitch because then you're even further away from getting him where you want to be.
Yeah.
But as I've got older, like my mentality has changed so much. I can't even tell you how at the other end of the spectrum I am to where I was. Like I just want the team to go and win and everyone to play well, and it makes it such an easy week. And you understand, like, all right, so I'm not been on the bench the past few weeks, the last month or whatever it is, but it can change so quick, and I can go from not being involved to playing well in the cup in a couple of weeks, and then there's an injury or there's a red card for someone else, and you can quickly find your way into the team. And if you've been a bitter person in that time from not getting in to then getting in, your mentality is so much more different. You become so much more self-centered. You're more like, well, I'm going in and I want to play well. I want to do this, that, and the other. Where I'm invested in the team now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I do get my chance, which hopefully I will, I'm not playing for myself. I'd be playing for the team. And I'd say a lot of footballers, especially when they're a little bit younger, have the exact same mentality. A, from speaking to them, and B, from seeing it.
Well, exactly that. And it will come. The season's a long time, isn't it? So at some point, you're going to get a run. At some point, you are going to get a run.
Also, the other thing is we've changed formations. I obviously signed to be involved in a back three, and that's changed. So I'd say the same for a few lads. It's the exact same for a few lads that have signed.
That was going to be my next question, actually, was we had another former player on during the summer, and I asked him the question, what's it, if fundamentally, do you have a preference in terms of playing as free centre-backs in a back three stroke five, or playing as a 2 in a 4? Is there a preference there?
Not really. I'd say like the way that Swindon... Like I'd have thrived in Swindon's team last year in that back three where he was playing like fluid football. Like I'd have done well in that team, no doubt about it. In my mind, I'd have done well in that team. But it depends. Like you can play 3 centre backs. Like I'm trying to think of like a club like Juventus used to play 3 centre backs, and their centre backs were so rigid. They were just there to head it and kick it. And like I wouldn't have done as well in that team as I would have in Swindon's team. So it just comes down to what the side's like and the traits of the people in the team. And we obviously were playing a back three. We played back three all pre-season, all the Harrogate game, and then we stumbled across a back 4 pretty much when McCurdy got sent off against
Salford.
Against Salford. So and then that's just like the things that can change so quickly in sport. And now we've found a really good form with the back 4, so I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Do you think that there will be opportunity to deploy the 3 again, which may open up more opportunities for you to play?
I hope so, but I don't pick the team. I don't pick the formation, so it's just as and what is required for the game. I suppose we're in a position now where the gaffer's got the luxury of just picking the same side again.
Well, yeah.
The team's winning, the team's playing better than whoever we're playing against, so it's like it's just the easiest job. It's an easier job now for him than having to find a solution to bad results. He's just got, I assume he'll just keep going with the same team until we come up a little bit unstuck.
You were kind of saying about how as a group there are games that you'll always reflect on games and whether you think you've done well, you've done badly, you could have done more, etc. As a group, after the weekend, again only having 10 men against what is a tough opposition in Grimsby, that the group must be buzzing with the weekend's result.
Oh, over the moon. We had Monday off, so we were only in today, and we had a tough session this morning in the gym this afternoon. But like the atmosphere, and it goes back to it. Like I'm saying, like Friday will be here before what will feel like 2 days from the last Friday. And football can't always be like that. Like you don't always win.
No.
The atmosphere in the group has been really good, and it helps when the lads, like I'm saying, the lads that aren't playing aren't bitter. So there's not just 11 happy lads in the building. There's 24 lads or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And everyone wins when no one loses when we win. No one loses.
There's been quite a lot of good stuff happening around the club, not just on the pitch. For example, we had as a pod, we've tried at least to be quite proactive about promoting women's football and Swindon Town women's team. And there was an announcement on Friday that the two teams are going to be working in collaboration and come closer together. As a pro, I can imagine you can understand and you can see the benefits that will have for the women's team as well.
It's going to obviously give them a lot bigger of a platform for the women's game, and it's obviously been massive over the summer with England winning the competition, and not really until like the past 4 or 5 years. It has took off, hasn't it? And there's 2 girls at Bristol Rovers who do that Her Game Too campaign, which was like pretty much everywhere. It was all over the mem anyway. It was all over the stadium there, and then it took off on Twitter, and near enough everyone got involved with it. I would assume Swindon women are involved in that somehow. Recently. My partner's going to watch England next. I think they play at Wembley next Saturday or Sunday. She's going to watch the game with her sister at Wembley. Nice. So like, it really has got pretty much everyone involved, doesn't it? Like even I was the same. I was watching the women's on the weekend when they're in the semi-finals and the final. It's obviously come on massive. I couldn't have told you what it was like before because I wouldn't have seen it. But the fact that it's actually on your TV pretty much every day, it's on Sky Sports News multiple times a day, shows that it's got a lot of wind behind it now. Yeah, no, definitely, and it's very positive. And you also, your happy smiley face appeared on everyone's social media feeds and the club website the other day because they announced the campaign to do with youth people and anxiety. It was Save the Egg, wasn't it? You and Ellis again doing that as well. Tell us a little bit about that if you can. We sort of got a text message and the night before and just said that some people were coming in to do sort of a project, the Save an Egg project, just a paragraph of what it's about, and just obviously more than happy to do it. It's obviously pretty much it's a struggle with a lot of people, the anxiety and stuff. Don't really. When I'm saying I'm giving advice and that on the project, I don't really suffer from it firsthand. So my advice might be a load of bollocks, really. But you obviously see people, and there'll be people closer to home than what you'd think, and there'll be people, I assume, at football. I don't know, but there'll be people at football that suffer with it, and it's just something that if I can help out with stuff like that in any sort of way, it's a positive, not a negative. On the wider scale of that, if you don't mind me asking, how like footballers doing the bit in the community, so to speak, we've seen it, like there was a big thing of it at Swindon for a while, then it kind of disappeared a little bit, and in the last season or two it's definitely come back, that there definitely seems to be that more community feel with players getting involved with schools and stuff like that. How do you see yourself as a role model figure because you're a professional footballer? Do you mind getting involved in that kind of thing? Is it just part of the job? It's part of the job, but like I don't mind doing stuff like that at all. Like I never got pros or sports people to come into my primary school when I was younger, but if I would have, it would have been like a massive help for me and an inspiration for me. So it is part of the job, but it's something that like not you've got a passion for as such, but you do know that you're in a role, especially in the local area, where you kind of do have influence. And if it can help sort of one person get involved in football or get involved in sport or whatever it is, it's one person more than it was yesterday. So. One of the sort of less serious questions I was asked to put to you, I actually asked the same question on our regular Monday night one last night to the guys that were on. So I'll happily phrase it slightly different for you. It was asked, if you've got Darcy and Khan looking lovingly into your eyes, who would you give your last McNugget to? If you want to answer that one, you can, or it can be any other team member. But who would be? I'm presuming the way you've maybe mentioned him a few times, Ellis might be high up on the list as someone you might give it to, or are you keeping it for yourself? Out of the two you've mentioned, I'd give it to Sadie. Sadie's so quiet and everything, but he's again witty, funny, not very outspoken, but he's hilarious. Sadie will get it. Darcy's too much of a pretty boy. pretty
much. We got obviously Northampton coming up at the weekend. As fans, we kind of know what we're going to be coming up against. I imagine when you look at the league fixtures, Northampton's quite an easy one for the squad as a whole, whether you're involved or not, quite easy to get up for because you know the challenge that's in front of you. And how confident are you that we're going to get the result?
You have to be as confident as you can be. Like off the back of 3 wins, unbeaten in 9, it's impossible to not be going into that full of confidence. And you can already like picture what the game will be like against Northampton, and it'll be. I'm assuming it'll be pretty much us all having the ball dominated. But they challenge you in so many ways. They make you defend your box. They're such a threat off the set play. They've got players that can like do something out of nothing, and they're obviously a top side. Top side last year, but lads will be looking forward to. I don't think at this point like it's tougher to not be up for a game than it is tougher to get up for a game. Like lads at this level are playing for so much. They're not on hundreds of £1,000s a week. They're playing to get a better contract, get a better money, get better bigger club, get a move, blah 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 blah. So I find everyone at this level has got such a massive motivation inside them to do well.
Nick, I know you and Ben were watching our show last night. The panel was quite positive for what's going to happen, but you didn't necessarily completely agree with everything that was said, did you?
No, not at all. I think we'll batter Northampton Saturday, and I'll give you some reasons why. They've won 7 games, and I've got it. I need to look at my paper. I've got it wrote down. They've beat Hartlepool, who are bottom, Rochdale 23rd, Crawley 22nd, Colchester 21st, Wimbledon 16th, Stockport 17th. The only decent team they've beat, and we don't know how they're at the top, is Barrow. So I think they're in a false position. They've beat all the teams down the bottom of the league, and I think we're just going to absolutely batter them for that reason.
But then we come back to Ben's word, momentum. Surely winning breeds winning, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing, so we'll batter them. It's simple.
Ben, are you equally positive for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Northampton, their own strengths. They've got Pinnock and Hoskins, and they've got good players that can hurt us. If we're well drilled at the set plays, which is their main source of threat, really, we're going to create chances against them. I think we might need to be patient, but I think we can win by a couple of goals. I think I'm quite confident that we'll pull it off tomorrow.
Are you still, because I know you and John were talking, are you still confident of going and winning the next 5 in a row?
Not like John. John's gone a bit mental there. I'm just going each game as it comes because we've got some hard games. I think it's great that we've got top teams going into the form that we are. I'd much rather be playing them as we are at the minute with momentum behind us and the unbeaten run. Bring anyone on at the minute because we've got Mansfield coming up. We've got Stevenage coming up and they're up there.
Yeah.
You know, we've obviously
got 4 of the top 7 we play.
We've got once we've cleared that, and if we're still up there come the end of this month, and we've got like 8 games this month, it's a ridiculous amount of games we've got. If we come out of that and we're still, going to November or mid-October, November, we're still up there, then there's no reason why we can't stay there. This is a good time. We just got to keep pushing it, and I think we're a good team, and I think we'll win tomorrow.
Kieran, Saturday. I'll ask you in just a second, but I want to ask Kian something that Ben said. When you're coming up against like the informed striker in the division, as a defender, are you solely thinking, I'm going to prove a point here today by stopping you scoring?
I don't work like that, but there might be lads out there that do. I don't personally.
You just focus on the job in hand generally?
I'm not massive on looking at league tables and stuff anyway, especially not so much at this point in the season anyway, because so many teams are still finding their feet. And like who scored the most goals in the division, I couldn't even tell you. I really don't pay attention to stuff like that. It's about the opponent on the day, and someone can go from scoring 3 goals one week to not even getting a kick the next. Especially when people have been at the level a while, what they're going to be like. So like last year, I knew the boy Simpson for you was like strong, powerful, going to be a handful.
Yeah,
but I couldn't tell you like how many goals he'd scored up until that point. I don't really pay attention to stuff like that so much.
Okay, fair enough. Kieran, how optimistic are you for the weekend? Are you making almost a full house of people expecting us to win?
Go.
Heart says win, head says draw, but just there's no real base for that. That's just what feeling I've got.
There's no base to any football opinion, mate.
No, I think I'd like to see win, but I think it's going to be a tough game. But I can see both sides being quite cagey with it, and I think hopefully we come out the winning, as Nick says, batter them. But reckon it's a draw. But I think it'll be good. It'll be a good test, and I think it will see if Northampton are really about it, because we're one of the better sides in this league, no doubt about that. Like, I think we've played some really good sides come out of points. Whereas Nick says, obviously at the minute they've played sides that are sort of maybe not doing as well as they should be at the moment, and a bit of a dodgy position. So I think there'll be more pressure, I think, on them to prove a point. And obviously we've got the momentum, so hopefully we can come out of a win. But I think given that we're trying to obviously play a top side, I think it'll be a draw.
Okay. We really do appreciate your time this evening. Just a couple more questions, if we can, Cian. I think, Ben, you wanted to ask a sort of more generic one about, was it rule changes? And if there was one rule Cian could change in football, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. It's okay. If there was anything about football you could change, and it's just football in general, what's the one thing you would change about it?
I did have a look at this question. I got it sent to me last night from 5 feet. This is the one I struggled with. Is there any rules that could be made better?
Well, it
obviously
could be
the
a
VAR
change.
one. But
it could be a rule change. It could be the way teams are trained. It could be the setup. It could be football. Something about football in general. Anything.
Right. So I've thought about this. I've thought about this before, and no other sport does it. But for 10 minutes, you get 3 opportunities to do it in a season. And for 10 minutes during a game, you're allowed to bring on a 12th man. So you can play 12v11 for 10 minutes 3 times a season. Just because there's obviously some games you obviously might have a man sent off and you can chuck one on for 10 minutes to play 11v11.
Yeah.
But it's obviously never going to happen, but it would be so interesting to see how much of an advantage the 12th man would make, and when people would use it, when people wouldn't use it.
That's interesting.
That's actually that's thrown me a little bit. I was expecting that. That would certainly be an interesting change, and when and how teams would use that. We mentioned that you've got a couple of goals in your career so far. Is that, I mean, obviously defending is the bread and butter for you, but is that something you'd like to add more should the opportunity arrive, is to chip in a few more?
Yeah. Obviously, it's something that the top ends do. I think, has Ramos got more than 100 goals or something in his career?
Ramos's record is ridiculous.
It's something that is obviously going to be valued. I know he took a few penalties and stuff, but still, like, ridiculous. It's obviously something that everyone would want to add to their game. Just try and get a few games before I start thinking about scoring.
We mentioned about youth team football at the start, and you're obviously a long way off of it yet. But from what you've seen, is there a culture change in terms of helping players that are retiring? And at what point in a career does someone start thinking, what am I going to do? Have you already thought, I might fancy a bit of coaching myself? Yeah. Or
I've tinkered with the idea, but I've not started any of my badges as such. I've not really thought into it. You're so engrossed in just playing that, and you don't want to let anything distract you from winning. I haven't thought about it at all, really, what I was to do after football, whether I wanted to get into coaching or whatever. I've not had that stronger thought on it yet. Obviously, some of the lads must be doing their badges and stuff, but I just think with a lot of things, you obviously have to have the qualifications, but it's about who you know, not what you know sometimes as well. And there's a lot of luck involved. There'll be lads out there, hundreds of lads that have got all their badges and can't get a job for toffee. And there's lads out there that will still be actively doing their badges that are in jobs, first team jobs, assistant managers at certain clubs. Again, it's a lot about the luck of the draw. But no, I've not thought about it or considered it yet.
Before we let Cian go, guys, do you want to? I'll throw it open. Any sort of last questions from you guys? Nick, was there anything in particular you wanted to ask while you had the opportunity?
Yeah, I saw a video recently with Sean Dyche talking about players' fines. Is there a setup in Swindon that you get fined for lateness, etc.? If there is, who runs it?
Glads runs it. There's a system which is just a system which is to be paid before Monday training, 10 o'clock for the previous week, and that gets put in on a Friday, so you've got the weekend to pay for it. And that just is going in a fines pot towards a bit of a Christmas beer, I think.
Is there any odd ones that are in there? You know, rather than just being late, is it like 30 boots or I don't know, what a scruffy, etc.?
Overly competitive WhatsApp messages.
If you're not like respectably shaved downstairs, you can be fined for it.
I wasn't expecting.
I would not want to inspect that. That's not a job that you'd want, really.
I don't know who's the judge of it. There's been a few lads and it's like you could be in the shower and it'd be like, nah, get Glads in here, like Glads will come in. He's like, is that acceptable? Glads is like, no. Glads is like, no, I'll jot you down for a tenner.
I guess on the list there's not one for trashing the dressing room and ref's room, otherwise the Tony wouldn't pay the penalty.
No, I don't think that goes to. We'd be well away if that was our Christmas do. We'd be going to Dubai.
Courtesy of McCurdy. Here's our Christmas do.
Yeah, on Harry. The one with Dyche, Barton obviously played under Dyche at Burnley. So Bristol had the exact same fines system as that, which was the big spin the wheel.
Spinning wheel, yeah.
Yeah, you get so that was brilliant. I sort of mentioned it to Glads. I think we're going to sort of implement it now in the next few weeks leading up to Christmas.
Okay,
brilliant, good.
It massively helps with camaraderie and stuff.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. Ben, anything you'd like to ask while you've got the opportunity?
Yeah, the current manager. What's he like as a coach and as a man manager himself? He's obviously a very passionate man. You can tell that with the way he's acted in the victories and his interview after the Gillingham game. You know, he looked so down in the dumps. So obviously takes things quite personally. What is he like, you know, compared to your previous gaffers? What's he like as a manager?
He's as a coach, I think he's really good. We've obviously had like more time over pre-season and stuff for him to coach, and I found him a really good coach. He gets his point across really good, which like with some coaches they can like know what they're trying to say and know what they're trying to do, but actually coaching it to the group is a different thing. And he's so clear on how he wants us to play and how he thinks is going to give us the best opportunity to win. Like you said, he is really hard on his sleeve, and when he's upset and he's angry, he has let the lads have it. And at the same time, when we've done well and stuff, he is the first to praise. And we've had meetings and analysis on games where we've not really performed, but then we've had games where we've absolutely battered teams, and he'll show 30, 40 clips of really good actions of play. So it's not like it's all negative or it's all just positive. That he's got a really good balance to him. What was the last part of your question? Sorry.
I just compared.
Is he similar to? Yeah, they're all. I find managers a lot of them are so different. It's hard to compare one to the other. So at Coventry, when I was sort of coming through, I had Tony Mowbray. It was like I can't even explain. Like he'd done so much for my career, and when he spoke, like the whole room would like listen. Like there would be nothing. He's the best storyteller. He's the best I've come across. I still speak to him now and again, just because of how much of an influence he had on me. And Glads worked under him at Blackburn and said the exact same. Like I think Glads was in a predicament with his knee and stuff, with his injury record and stuff, where he didn't know what he was going to do. And Tony, like Tony Mowbray, he treats the person before the player. He's so empathetic, sympathetic. He's brilliant. I speak to Glads about him a fair bit and how he's helped me and how he helped Glads. Glads has sort of said, like, if it wasn't for Tony, I don't think he might not still be playing because of his injuries. Like, how much understanding he's got. He's got a wealth of knowledge, and he's obviously doing really well at Sunderland.
Well, yeah, he's still going now, isn't he? At his age, he's been around for years, but he's still doing it at a competitive level, top level. So he's still doing the business. So he's good. He's good at his job.
Yeah, really good. Obviously, Barton's like no one else. I had Tisdale at Bristol, who was again very different to anything. I obviously worked under Graham Potter at Swansea. So Graham played me for sort of 7, 8, 9 games that season. We were in the Championship, and I'm not just saying it now because he's at Chelsea. He was like similar to Tony. Like you could tell that he was going to be coaching at a very, very high level. Really, really, really good coach. Again, similar to the gaffer here now. Like can coach a session off the top of his head. Doesn't need scripted notes or anything. Gets his point across really well.
Nice. Kieran, anything you'd like to ask?
Yeah, staying on the subject of coaches, just because I think this has been a question a lot of Swindon fans have asked this season. At times, it looks like there's like 4 or 5 coaches on the touchline, all barking various different instructions. Is it as chaotic as it seems, or is there sort of method to the madness in that? And what do you prefer as a player?
There's method to the madness, and a lot of it just comes out of like it's like Gav's obviously the one that's like most vocal. He's shouting, ranting, raving and stuff, which is his way of getting his point across. Obviously, the gaffer does it different, and Daisy does it different to the gaffer. As a player, you can't like when they're playing. You don't really listen to what's being like. You do listen, but you're that focused in the balls in play and whatever. You hear it, but you don't hear it. You haven't got time to comprehend what's being said. It's like you're just reacting, and then the only time really that you do understand or you can hear what's being said is like if it's a debrief after the game or it's in training. The stuff that's said during the game there's 100,000 things being said from players, fans, staff. Yeah. Most of the time it is when the ball's in play, it's just in one ear out the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, who's the best and worst dressed in the squad?
The best. Reedy wears quite a lot of designer gear. Like he wore today. He wore these like Palm Angels trousers. I didn't like them at all. They were like waterproof joggers. I wouldn't have worn myself. But then you could ask someone else, and they'd say like, "Oh, Reedy's the best dressed. Did you see the waterproof joggers he had on today?" Reedy's not the worst. Reedy's probably one of the best, just not today. Like he's pretty clean with what he wears. He's smart. Glads is the same, but Glads' gear is getting a little. You can tell Glads is getting a little bit older. His gear's changed from sort of the like lazy tracksuit, and he'll sort of wear like a nice half sit with the collar and everything. He's just. And who would be the worst? I'd have said McCurdy would have been the worst, just because it wouldn't have been nothing to. Like, I couldn't have worn nothing. Everyone will say.
Was it charity gear that he used to get up in? Because it looked like sort of like a charity.
I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. There was one day we went away at the start of the season and he had a Zara bag as his suitcase.
Oh, it's a crazy boy, that lad.
Yeah, lives his life so much off the cuff, but it obviously seems to be working for him.
I'm sure he will certainly enjoy life up in Scotland.
Sorry, Ben.
So I was just saying, did he just talk about Chelsea constantly? Is that all he talked about? Because I can imagine.
Honestly,
that's all he's instance, Chelsea. He
could say nothing all day and then go home and be the most vocal person on my social media. And he wouldn't have said nothing all day. He's pretty blunt when he does speak. He's like straight to the point. He's not walking like he doesn't sort of tippy tap around the point. He's pretty straight talking.
Guys, unless there's any further questions from either of you?
No.
Cian, look, thank you very much again for taking the time for coming on. It didn't take us long as a pod to decide when we were going through the options available. we got sent a list of the players that are available. This is our first year sponsoring players, and when the list goes round, your name was overwhelmingly the favourite for us as to who we wanted to sponsor. We kind of felt that you matched our image, and like I said to you before we hit record, we take full responsibility for the red card, because everyone we sponsored had an absolute howler after we announced that we sponsored them, pretty much. So, but we genuinely. We thank you so much for your time tonight. We hope that by the time people watch this or listen to it, that they really enjoy it as much as I have, and I hope the other guys have. We wish you and obviously the rest of the guys luck for the rest of the season. We hope you get some plenty of game time soon. But honestly, from all of us at Fools Rush In, thank you for taking time out tonight.
No problem at all. Really enjoyed it. Talking about a few memories, having a laugh and stuff, and I appreciate you sponsoring me for the season. Hopefully, I can get a few games in. And
It'd be good.
If all else fails, you'll.
Go on.
Sorry, carry on.
No, I was done speaking.
I was just going to say, if all else fails, then you'll get to see a couple more of us at the end of season sponsors thing anyway.
Exactly. I'll have to sort you a signed jersey or something. We'll get the boys to sign it.
Awesome.
I hope I'm not the last lad that can hop on the podcast.
Well, you can obviously go in and tell them that we're not as scary as some of the other people that like to ask them questions, so they can just come on and have a laugh.
Have a laugh, yeah, exactly that.
Especially after you've called them out for their for their dress sense and other things. I'm sure they'd all love to come on and talk about you for a bit.
Oh yeah. Listen, I'll tell them that there'll be a queue. They'll be requesting your DMs a lot.
Brilliant.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Really do appreciate your time. And yeah, good luck to you and the rest of the team for the rest of the season.
Cheers, lads. All the best.
Cheers.
We genuinely hope everyone watching and listening to this has enjoyed this. And as always, send in your comments. You never shy in letting us know what you think. We really do appreciate it. Until next time, we'll be back live on Monday night again to review the weekend's game. But from Nick, Ben, Kieran, Kian, and myself, it's a very, very good night.
That was difficult for you there, wasn't it?
Take my hand, take my whole life too, but I can't help falling in love.